Welcome to the Channel Surfers. I am your co-host, John McCabe, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Jeff Lennon. How you doing, Jeff?
John, I'm doing great. I've probably had a pot and a half, 2 pots of coffee, so I'm jacked up for this because we're going to talk about a really, really interesting subject today. So I wanted to make sure I had my adrenaline plus caffeine.
Jeff,
I think you're overselling
Jeff burns the candle at both ends, so he's always thinking and moving and shaking. So this episode is going to be very interesting. It's a conversation about how channel and distribution can operate more effectively in a rapidly evolving, ecosystem driven world. Our guest is Jessica Simon, who brings up a wealth of experience across, strategic alliances, operations, distribution, and ecosystem enablement. And I think we want to shine a light on what it takes to, make a modern partner program actually work. And I think distribution is a topic we've talked about on our show, but we haven't really dug into it. And this is something we want to do. So Jessica, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So today I lead Google's security distribution program globally. That includes our indirect partner base. I also lead the Mandiant Consulting Partner Program at Google. I am here in Buffalo, so I'm actually close to the Ingram Micro office, which is where I got the start of my career. But yeah, excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah,
Excellent.
awesome, man. Well, welcome. So when John and I were kind of kicking around, like who could we get that understands distribution? And I know when I reached out to you, it was at first most people were like, I don't want to do this. But at the end of the day, I mean, we just want to have a conversation because when I again, just looking at your background and your career, I want to know a little bit more about that, and you can share that with the listeners. You have a pretty extensive background, 20 plus years working with and in distribution in a couple different facets. So one of the things we're hoping to maybe unpack here a little bit, as John just shared, is, how has the distribution ecosystem kind of evolved? Where do you see it today? And like, how can we start to make some things better? So I'll kind of just throw it back. I mean, like, how did you even get your start in distribution?
Well, it's interesting. So when I finished up college here in Buffalo, I was actually working for a reseller, and not just any reseller. It was a reseller that we did a kind of a full ecosystem of taking old computers apart, putting them back together, and then reselling them. So like a green innovation. What I had found out later on, I don't know if I ever told you this, was that I was the one person that was not there on a work release from prison. So I made some really...
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
Double check that, Jessica.
So I made some really interesting friends. But that's kind of where I got my start in tech.
Okay.
And then towards the end of the summer, I kind of knew that I needed to find something else. And I had saw an ad for... they were looking for a pre-sales technical support person at Ingram Micro. I had no idea what Ingram Micro did. I thought maybe they built computers. Maybe they were like Best Buy. I had no idea. So I applied and I got the job, and then rapidly found out that I was going to be a phone tech support agent, in which I knew nothing about anything. And so I got my start recommending the right printer cartridge to go with the right printer, which I still, to this day, if you ask me like what goes with like an HP like 5170, I could probably tell you.
That's awesome. Actually, I've got an 8600, so yeah, so I need the 950, 951 with a C carbide put in the back, right?
Exactly.
Well, first of all, going back to your first job, like I think that's, I mean, I was joking. I mean, I think that's incredibly noble. It's funny you didn't know that, but I think that's an awesome way to, to actually leverage the technology. But so you were there for a number of years, and like I said, I think we met probably 8-9 months apart after you started at FireEye. Yeah. And I, when I was telling John, what was amazing to me is I thought I kind of knew distribution after spending some time at EMC, and it was FireEye was doing some radically different things, and it had a multifaceted kind of distribution strategy, which was different. It was almost like working in a matrix organization because you had choices, right? to different distributors, not just from a federal public sector perspective. But talk to me, like, and again, just looking at what you were doing then and where you are now. I mean, what are you seeing in the transition with distribution, and how can people be better aligned to work with distributors? Because that's what you're doing now, and you're also running the Mandiant program, which we can dig into a little bit. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what kind of advice would you give people to be better and get better aligned with the distribution, and what are some red flags to look for?
For someone who's looking to get into a distribution role, that's what we're like. What can they do and look for?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess a couple things and a couple thoughts on that. So, being in it as long as I have, there's been really this huge evolution of the channel, of course, but really down to the distribution level. When I first started working at FireEye, for instance, I think what we were using distribution for is very, very different than what we're using distribution for at Google, but really in general today. Mm-hmm. Historically, distributors were, I think kind of this box pushers, we thought of them as like the bank in the barn.
Yeah.
Logistics. So like, I'd say like the bank in the barn, right? So we use them as like the bank. It was very important for our DSO because they could get us paid in 3 days, which I remember saying over and over again at FireEye. We weren't chasing, customers down for invoices because we had a distributor that was our bank. And that was important when we're reporting to Wall Street. And then to your point, the logistics piece. So when I first started at like Ingram Micro, what we were doing, we're doing printers, we're shipping towers, we're shipping all kinds of, refrigerators, like all kinds of things. And they had this huge logistics arm. They were the back end for Walmart, warehouses all over the world. That has changed, obviously. I think simply put, now the services have kind of become the new SKU, right? So we're moving away from this transactional resale model in the channel as a whole to more of like a transformational consumption-based services model. And so now we have to rely on the distributors more on platform development, enablement, financial transformation, meaning like how partners move from a model built on gross margin, for like upfront hardware things to a reoccurring consumption-based revenue model. And that's really where we're leaning in with distribution today, is kind of in those two ways, right? So how do we kind of be the back end of enabling the partners, extending our teams, and then how do we get the partners kind of cloud ready, right?
So, in my opinion on distribution, like initially when I started building channel programs, I was anti-distribution because I felt like I don't want to share more margin. And I'm in software. I'm not in hardware. I'm not moving boxes. But I've really come around over the years. I have some really good friends at TD Synnex, and they've really kind of shown me the light. But I think distribution has a real purpose, not for that moving boxes logistics standpoint, but from the reach of someone, like a small company like myself could get to access those partners that are using the distribution partner, the enablement piece, the marketing, everything that a distribution partner can do. And from where you sit at Google, like, how is it that you use a distribution partner? Because I think it's such a bigger event for you than it is for like a small cybersecurity company like what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it like that, because when I first came into Google, and for reference, so Mandiant, where I came from, was actually acquired by Google. At Mandiant, we were primarily distribution focused. For our SaaS offering, we were basically required to work with distribution. When we were acquired by Google, we moved into their cloud security organization that had no distribution footprint. We didn't work with any distributors. In fact, we worked with, I think, less than 10 partners, period, globally. So it was a very different ecosystem that I was used to working with. And I do remember I was joking around with Jeff when I first came on board, and my leader at the time had very little time or interest for, what I was peddling as far as distribution goes. And I was like, should I just go work on the YouTube team? Like, I don't know. But within a year, we actually had fully migrated over the Mandiant kind of ecosystem and combined it in a way with the Google ecosystem that made sense for us. And you're right. I mean, Google is huge, and each kind of division is using distribution in a different way. Google Cloud has a huge practice. Google Workspace has a big practice. They're doing a ton of Chrome with distribution. But security, to your point, like, do we really need it?
It's software. What do you need distribution for? You know,
so
you give me the key and you go log in and boom, you're there. You know?
Yeah. Well, think of it this way. So our mantra within Google security is we go narrow and deep. Our channel account managers work with a very small subset of partners, very large MSSPs, large GSIs, and that is their focus. Right. With that, we have a slim team. We're doing a lot, but we are slim. So we have really leaned into distribution to become part of our team. We've consolidated our distributors globally. So we work with just a small number of distributors that have a larger footprint or are very niche-y within cybersecurity and really, really good at enabling our partners on it. And we set up our teams to also get narrow and deep within the distributors. So they are part of our ecosystem. We treat them like they're part of our team. They manage a subset of partners. We manage a subset of partners. So the partners that they're working on, we're talking to them every day. They're in our team meetings. They're in our boot camps. They're in our trainings. They're seeing and learning the same way we do, except they have a much longer reach than we do.
So then what I'm hearing, you're kind of using distribution the way I would want to use it, right? Not to move boxes and software. It's to align with those partners within the distribution ecosystem or portfolio of partners to help you move product, right? And you're doing the enablements with the distribution partner. They're a part of all your meetings. They're a part of all your opportunities. And that's how I see you using it. And that's how I would use it. And I think in America, distribution is such a different story than it is in Europe and rest of the world. We had a guy on, Scott Struble, who runs channels for Smartsheet, not Smart Sheets, Smartsheet. And he was saying that he really feels like it's so different as well. Like it's just treated differently here in the US. I mean, so what I'm hearing is that you're using it the way I think I would use it, not in the traditional way of distribution.
Correct. I mean, like I said, they're really helping us scale globally, but then they're also, from a partner perspective, they're helping them navigate Google. These hyperscalers, Google is no exception. We are very hard to navigate. And I find a lot of the times the partners actually prefer working with distribution, even when given the choice, because they have a dedicated team that's helping them kind of figure out how to engage with us.
They're Sherpa leading them through the maze of Google. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
So I'm just curious. So, and again, it sounds very much like my old days at EMC, like the Matrix type of organization, more or less, right? And to John's point, I do see that as kind of a transformational step with distribution, because they probably should be doing that, especially with the fact that it's less products and more service-driven solutions. So how do you, like, the challenge of getting that alignment, right? And I know when we briefly spoke, I mean, you're doing this on the distribution, and then you're also running the Mandiant partner program, so to speak. How do you handle the challenges of getting that alignment and the communication internally? Because it's the old saying, you're trying to herd cats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you deal with that? And what are some of the challenges that you have, and what are you doing to kind of overcome that? Because to John's point, this, other people may be looking at, this would be a good field to go into. It's not for the faint of heart, based on what I've heard.
No.
So I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about your perspective and how you're dealing with some of that.
Yeah, I think, Gemini helps, right? Like, I use a lot of our internal tools.
A big fan of Thread.
Oh, we're big AI. Oh boy.
Big fan. Honest to God, it's like the tortoise and the hare. And I'll digress here. I think that release probably about 2 weeks ago, like it has in a lot of areas kind of jumped ahead of some of the other LLMs. But I'll leave this, and then I want you to answer your question. But they're each doing something really unique, and you need to use them in different ways, right? But Gemini is just, I've been really impressed with the updates in the last, I'm going to say 3 months. It's been phenomenal. I'm a big Nano Banana fan as well.
So is my family. We've made everyone into like dancing elves. We've done all kinds of fun things with my mom's picture that she's not thrilled about. So yeah, we've really
I love it.
Nice.
Well, it's good to see that you're using your own stuff, you know?
I know I was laughing the other day because the instance that I'm using is obviously like our work instance because it's like the full blown version. And if they look at my history, like I'm sorry if like any of Google is listening, it for sure is just like turn this woman, my mom, into someone wearing a turkey costume for Thanksgiving. It's like it's not being used for anything work appropriate.
Oh my God.
But that's what it's used for. Let's be
Yes.
honest, right?
Beta testing.
But look, if you're not, if John will tell you, one of my favorite drinking, phrases. But if you're not trying to make people laugh, then what's the point?
It's gotta have humor in this world. You know, I've had very serious bosses who don't like humor, and I'm like, why? Like, you got to laugh at yourself, and you got to have fun. Like, it makes your whole body is different. You know, it helps your well-being. If you're always stiff and serious, you get sick.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
So,
we're in the channel, it doesn't
let
make
me
any sense.
rephrase my question for a second because I kind of made it like a 2-3 part question. So I'll just give you one question here. Give me a lesson that you've learned the hard way in this transition that has now changed the way that you approach things.
You mean in the transition, like into
Yeah.
working for like a hyperscaler in particular?
Yeah, in general.
Yeah. I think a lot of lessons learned. I think that I unfortunately have a bit of a type A personality. I like to have control over everything in my environment. And that was a lot easier to do at smaller companies. Moving into a very large company, like Google or like any large corporation that you could make a job change to, that is very hard to do. And it was honestly a challenge for me not having kind of like, here's what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. This is your number. This is like what you're responsible for. That transition for me was really challenging. I'm very much a person that thrives on like, you're doing a great job. Like, you're awesome. Like that's the oldest daughter in me, perhaps. You're not going to get that, at a very large company like this. So I think in the beginning, candidly, like it made me a little crazy, not really knowing what I was responsible for. There wasn't firm in my mind, kind of like these firm metrics that we were supposed to be meeting. Fast forward a couple of years, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to me professionally and even emotionally. Like I feel like it's been very freeing to have something that I could kind of make my own and do what I wanted to do and have the backing and support of, our internal organization to do something different, to try something different, to think outside the box, has been really fun. So yeah.
And I love that. I'm just wondering, like, what kind of challenges do you run into with this role? Like, because you have to work with a lot of different parts and pieces and companies and people. Like, what kind of challenges do you see with this?
So I guess 2 answers on that. The first answer I'll think about from kind of just a pure distribution standpoint. Google is rapidly evolving, innovating in a really, really cool way. We are also, security, like Google security within, kind of the Alphabet organization. So we kind of adhere to things that Alphabet is doing. I think that from a historical distribution standpoint, if you don't know the hyperscalers really well and you don't know cloud really well, it's been very challenging for some of the more legacy disties that know security really well. So kind of marrying those two has been a bit of a challenge. I think for some of the folks that, we work with at the distributors and, making sure that they understand, like it's kind of easy to teach someone cybersecurity. Is a whole different story teaching someone, how to navigate a cloud organization, right? So, kind of bringing those two together has been, I don't want to say an uphill battle, but it's just been like, that has been something that we've faced.
Well, it's very nebulous, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was saying one of the challenges I have with just working with like a marketplace, like a Google marketplace,
Mhm.
we're running into an issue where I'm at right now, where the partner got paid by a client. The client wanted to go through like a Google marketplace to, retire credits or dollars that they have spent with
Mhm.
Google, and we were like the third party, and we haven't gotten paid, and it's been so complicated and very aggravating, for my CEO. And I'm just like, what? Why is it so difficult? What are we missing? Why can't it be easier? You know,
Ooh,
I would
yeah.
say open a support ticket,
we've talked to
and I'll help you.
the Google rep, and it's
Did you
like,
try Gemini? Did you
no.
ask Gemini? Maybe Gemini
I
has
might
really
put it
good
in
tickets.
Nano Banano and make it a Nano Banana and
Ooh,
make a meme about it. But yeah, I'm just like, for those channel executives out there that are like trying to get into this, because AWS isn't easy either. To set up a
Yeah.
marketplace, not
Yeah.
for the faint of
it's a
heart,
Very.
business.
right?
We actually had a guy on. We had a guy on way back, Craig Leeson, and his whole
Yeah.
business is around the AWS marketplace because it is so complicated and there's so many facets. And even when people try to do it on their own, they're missing, more than 50-60% of the different levers and things that they should be doing to make sure that they're successful. And it's not like they wanted it to be complicated.
No,
It is,
it is.
Yeah.
And if you hire
Um,
Tackle IO, you're going to spend a lot of money to do that. And like, I've worked for small companies who are like, no, don't do that. You build it. I'm like, well,
Well, you got
we
to get to
missed
a certain
something.
threshold, I think, to be able to
Yeah.
get into that because they're going to help you with the automation and the
Hmm.
fulfillment aspects of it. But I
Yeah.
absolutely agree.
And that's
Um,
also where I would say that distribution is a great first stop because they do have experience across the three major hyperscalers.
Yeah.
They're really doing a ton of enablement on how to get started on these marketplaces. So, even before, you engage with some of these vendors, my recommendation would be for sure to use distribution as kind of a first stop for some of that.
Great recovery answer, Jessica. Great answer.
that's interesting. So regardless of regardless of the size of the company, if you're really looking to scale, regardless of your size, it is something that you should have on your go to market or at least in your strategy to lean into that at some point. But you're saying do it sooner rather than later because they're going to be that guide, that Sherpa, so to speak, to help you figure out some of those things, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of, where the new evolution of distribution is going is, how can they, help you build out your strategy for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years? And what does that look like? So I think that, you know,
Man.
getting started with a distributor makes even more sense than, kind of later on when, you're this huge organization that may not necessarily need the same resources or you're just using them in a different way.
Hmm. So, so how do you measure your success? And it's probably different between the two, right? Because they have different goals and outcomes that you're trying to drive. But so how are you guys measuring the success? What kind of KPIs are you looking to drive without giving away, trade secrets? Just kind of curious.
With the distributors in particular?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually do have some KPIs that we ask our distributors to work with us on. We build a business plan at the beginning of the year with each of them, and we kind of come to a consensus on what we're driving for the year. But with that, there are some basic things around obviously like a minimum deal threshold. We're really asking them to drive, new partner opportunities as well as a variety of enablement activities. We want them to be our voice to the street. So we want them delivering trainings on our behalf, webinars, things like that to help enable the partners and kind of continue that
Mm,
long reach that they have.
yeah. How extensive is the enablement that you build with your distribution partner?
It's huge. I think that, earlier you were asking me, how do I like scale a program? And a lot of what we're building is for that. So I have a library over the past couple of years that I've built
Mm,
that is compiled training across the board on every security product line. We have pitches that we have built to be partner specific, distribution specific, co-branded emails, really just a plethora of things that they can use. I have, videos upon videos of me doing a 5-minute pitch, of me doing a 20-minute pitch, an hour pitch, of, ways that they can emulate it, talk scripts. And I've built all of it.
Pitched for an hour?
I know. Can you imagine this for an hour?
I'd be like, pages long.
That's like,
I'm sorry,
that's like
when you
a
said an hour, I'm
nanosecond
like,
for Jeff.
exactly. I'm like, an hour.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a wow. Okay.
It's a lot to hear this Western New York accent for that long.
Wow.
But yes. So anyways, I do have a repository of collateral, and, we share that out and update it, regularly. And in turn, we're asking them to deliver it to the partners as well.
So here's a question for you, John, and John will appreciate this. So you're in a hyperscaler, you're in a very sophisticated company, you're doing sophisticated things, you're kind of sophisticated. What does your partner stack look like? Do you guys use, obviously you have a CRM, you're using a separate PRM. What are some of the other overlapping things that you're doing from, managing the content, the mapping, all that stuff? I'm just kind of curious. Without, again, no trade secrets.
You mean as far as like, what does our internal tools look like?
Yeah.
Or?
I mean, do you have like a very sophisticated setup? And obviously you're probably using Google Workspace, and I'm just
Correct.
kind of curious, are you using other, potential, without naming names, like PRMs or CRMs and, other market-based applications and things like that?
Yeah, so we have an internal CRM that we use heavily. It is a third party, but for sure, it's Google tools first. We use them heavily. A lot of even the offerings that we're have externally started as Google tools. So, we're always innovating, and which is, kind of fun because we get, first pass at some of the things that we're rolling out internally as tools. But yes, I mean, workspace heavy with some third-party aspects as well.
Interesting. Okay.
The other thing too that I'll mention, just because you talked about internal, external tools, and then, some of the enablement tools that we have a really interesting third-party tool that we use called Partner Marketing Studio that all the partners can use, where they can go in and co-brand all their own materials. So that's something we use really, really heavily and has some really awesome content. So
what's
for
it called? Partner Marketing Studio?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah.
And they can get to that from the standard Google site.
Awesome.
Interesting. I like that one.
So
I've worked with PRMs that have had that capability built in, and that's a big win for me. I don't want partners that ask me all the time to co-brand something or go to my marketing team and say, "Can you co-brand this for us?" I like having it done where you can do it automatically.
Exactly.
So Jeff, we got to dive. We're kind of coming up on the end here, but we got to talk about AI tools and kind of dovetail with what Jessica just said. But I'm sure there's a lot of tools that Google has at your fingertips that you don't need to really go out and look for. But what are really key AI components of tool sets that you use as a distribution and channel leader?
So I guess again I'll answer that in two ways.
without putting the turkey costume on your mom, for crying out loud.
No. But if I think about it, solely from a Google security standpoint, so there's two answers here. One, what is the products that we're working on for, our customers? And then two, what are the tools that we're using internally as well? So from a Google security standpoint, I think AI is really delivering, three main things for us, right? So it's personalization. So if I think about, again, security, we have the threat detection piece of, specific to the customer's environment. The insights, so that's really just, giving us insights into kind of the more sophisticated threats and, taking the intel that's brought in from our data, right? And then the third piece is the automation. So, that's what's allowing us to have a faster response. It's, integrating, across all of our tools, all that kind of cool stuff. So then I think it's kind of similar to how I bring it back into my own work is, with those three things, the personalization, the insight piece, and the automation. I have a really large coverage model. I work with hundreds of partners, hundreds of internal sellers, multiple distributors. So kind of leaning into that personal automation and taking all these tools to, ensure that, I am using them for all the basic tasks that we do every single day, that I'm, taking these insights that like anything I'm allowed to share, I'm sharing that out with our, our external field as well. It's not just smart, it's like kind of critical at this point because I couldn't do my day-to-day job anymore without like what we're doing with Gemini. Like it would be impossible.
Well, it would be harder. It would take a hell of a lot longer, right? I mean, my question, which John asked in a different way, which you just answered it beautifully, which was I was going to ask you for a simple AI use case on how you're improving your team's performance and output, and you just kind of you gave it, which is awesome. So, and it's not even that it's a single AI tool because it's all about right leveraging the LLMs to help in other areas, right? But I think that's awesome because
Yeah.
we talk about getting rid of the mundane task. If you can simplify things, whether it's looking at emails, scheduling things, John's into the widget on his desktop. I mean, you twice this week you mentioned it, so I went and looked at it. I'm like, I have not been using this. Huh, interesting.
I shout out to Notebook LM as well. If you guys aren't using Notebook LM,
we love it.
Yeah, it's a game changer for me too.
We love it. It is unbelievable, and I'm trying to use it in different ways to just get better. But like talk about the widgets. Like I don't know why I never found these. It's great. I can see my calendar. I can see the weather. I have my to-do list. I'm more efficient than ever.
He is. It's kind of scary. I'm not saying that he wasn't efficient before.
I wasn't as efficient. I was.
It's
trying to find my calendar to see if I could do things. Like Jeff and I plan a lot of like sessions and and I'm like, am I okay? Am I booked? And now I have everything on one calendar, like right there. I could see if I'm available. I love it.
Which one of the reasons I kind of like I'll just give a plug to Notebook LM, which is it's almost like having your own privatized chat. Like I've built out a handful of notebooks and I started sharing it with people. And you literally watch them, like their brain, just like the whole top of their head goes, oh, like, wait a minute. I'm sitting there, John will tell you, you get on and all of a sudden you're talking and you have a complete understanding of whatever it is you're going to talk about. Like, and I mean, at a really good detailed level.
It makes you expert if you're not expert. It allows you to talk relevantly if you're not relevant, right?
Exactly. I tell people to use it as an onboarding tool. Don't wait for the company to onboard you. Go get all the information, put it in here, get the website, start asking questions. Here, I was just helping somebody out on the West Coast in Seattle. He started a new job with a cybersecurity company, and it's a new space, right? Even though you're in security, it's a different space. And I quickly set it up and I was showing them and it was just like, where do I got to go sign up for this thing like that? How did you just do all that? And I'm like, So, but anyway, well, look, if you, and I know we got to wrap this up. So what would you say is probably the most underrated partner management habit or thing that you see I'll say, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but I do it a lot. So, but you see newer people getting in the channel. What is the most underrated habit that you don't see people leaning into as much as they probably should or could?
I think being more proactive on, reaching out to their network for sure. I think even myself in the beginning, I was maybe nervous to reach out to someone that I didn't know very well, that had a skill set that I wanted or, was doing a job that I wanted to do. And I would wait for someone to, introduce me or pass me along or whatever. I think if I can make any recommendation, especially for folks that are new getting into the channel, just reach out to everybody. Don't be shy. Most people in the channel, as you guys know, are more than willing to talk about themselves nonstop. So I think just make those meetings, make those connections, talk to as many people as possible, make friends, put regular time on people's calendars, let them tell you to stop.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think in this day and age, like with so much like Zoom and technology and everything, if you can get face to face or like be in contact and constantly have someone thinking of you, that's going to benefit you, outside of doing events and all sorts of things that you need to do. But just one-on-one conversation is really a winner. So, all right. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being a part of our show. Is there any way people can get a hold of you to ask you questions if they have after this show?
LinkedIn's probably the best. So yeah, just look for me at on LinkedIn, Jessica Simon, and they'll find me.
Awesome. It was so nice having you on and seeing you again. And apologies for not remembering. I've got my brain is mush. But
she was much different back then, John. She was much different. I'm telling you.
I remember the Ingram Micro. Yeah. So with that, Jeff, thanks again for hosting with me. If anyone wants to get a hold of us, we have a brand new website we launched this week. It's the same address, www.channelsurfers.com. There's a form on the website to contact us if you want to be a guest. You can contact us that way to ask questions or give us feedback. We'd welcome that. We also have our LinkedIn page, and we have a YouTube page. So all these podcasts are videos. We're doing snippets, so you can go to our YouTube page and check that out. And Jeff's the mastermind behind that. But
people
other
are
than
going to
that,
get to see you, Jeff.
Yeah. So other than that, thanks for listening. And until our next show, Jeff, we'll be talking.
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot, Jess. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Jess.
Take care.